guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and I got a little bit of a rant for you guys today because I am fired up about something. This is something I've wanted to talk about, and you know, if you don't, just a disclaimer, if you don't consider this relevant enough for your time, or you don't think that this is something that I should be complaining about, that's fine, then click off the video. But this is just something that I personally wanted to rant about today and go over with you guys. And for those of you that maybe didn't think about this before, stick around for my rant because you're going to want to hear this and maybe it'll open your eyes a little bit. Now, I want to preface my rant by saying that today I am not comparing players. I'm not going to be claiming today that player A is better than player B or any of that. That's not the goal of today's video. And we've had this debate before about whether player A is better than player B and all that stuff. And just based on the title and the thumbnail and everything like that, you guys probably already know what this is going to kind of be pertaining. And this is something that's been an ongoing debate among Chiefs social media and that whole community. We've seen it a ton now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting hurt and everything like that. People are saying, do the Chiefs really need Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Is he better than Darrell Williams all season long? We've compared Darrell Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or Derek Gore and Darrell Williams and all that stuff. And look, there's plenty of room for that too. But there's been a lot of conversation surrounding those players. And one thing that I notice a ton is people using yards per carry as the sole stat, like their number one argument as to how one player is better than the other. And I wanted to go on a rant today talking about how absolutely incredibly foolish it is to use yards per carry solely to defend a player or to compare running backs. It is one of the stupidest things you can do. Now, what really drove me to start a video on this topic is a debate that I was involved in, or just an encounter that I had on Twitter with the account Arrowhead Live. A lot of you probably know who Arrowhead Live is. I've gotten into it with him a couple of times in the past, and we actually have a little bit of fun going back and forth and stuff. So it's no hard feelings with Arrowhead Live or anything like that. But he did tweet something some weeks ago about Najee Harris, and Clyde got brought into the conversation. But during the Steelers-Titans game, I think it was, it might have been another one before that. But anyway, Arrowhead Live tweeted in the middle of one of the Steelers games saying, "Are we sure Najee Harris is good? ? Maybe hurt? ? He shows zero explosiveness." And I quote tweeted this saying, "Chiefs fans, does Najee Harris stink? ? And then I compared Najee Harris's rookie year, 13 games through, compared to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or yeah, his first 13 games, excuse me, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire only played 13 games in his rookie season, and so for a fair comparison, I took Najee Harris's first 13 games and compared them, and here's what I got. So Najee Harris in his first 13 games, 237 attempts for 837 rushing yards, 397 receiving yards, and 9 total touchdowns. Bottom 5 offensive line and an awful quarterback, just as a couple factors to consider. Clyde Edwards-Helaire's first 13 games, 181 attempts for 803 rushing yards, 297 yards receiving, 5 total touchdowns, also a bottom 5 run blocking offensive line in the league. And I capped it off by saying you can't go around peddling Clyde propaganda and then say Najee stinks, because they're basically the same player. And I know Arrowhead Live has said good things about Clyde in the past. They're optimistic about his career outlook and everything. So I just found it odd that he would say something like Najee Harris stinks and then go around peddling Clyde propaganda, right? Immediately after I tweeted this and compared the two players, I had people saying, all this shows is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the better runner. Well, no, it doesn't. And the main reason people were saying this is because Clyde had the better yards per carry. If you do the math, Najee Harris actually had 0.6 yards per carry less than Clyde Edwards-Helaire through their first 13 games. Najee Harris had 237 attempts for 837 yards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 181 attempts for 803 yards. Now, the first reason this was stupid for people to point out in the first place is that Najee Harris had significantly more carries. And when you're getting more carries, that's more potential for your yards per carry to go down unless you're just absolutely tearing it up, which neither of these players were. And you have to compare usage as well and where their carries are coming from. But yeah, Najee Harris, he had significantly more carries. And yeah, he had 0.6 yards per carry less. But really, when you look at the numbers again and consider the carries that they got, 0.6 yards per carry anyway is actually a minuscule difference and doesn't necessarily show that Clyde was the better runner. And I'm not saying Clyde wasn't the better runner. You know what? That's up to you. And again, we're not debating that in this video, but if he is a better runner, that 0.6 yards per carry difference is not why. And that's what people were trying to say. And I'm saying that is stupid. I mentioned usage a second ago and why that matters so much. And this is something that no one ever really seems to consider when they're arguing for their favorite player or whatever. They just throw out yards per carry and that's it. Hey, this guy is better because look, he has 4.5 yards per carry and this guy has 3.9 or whatever. Well, usage is so important. Again, I mentioned a second ago how if you have more carries, there's more potential for your yards per carry to go down because it shows that you're a bell cow back or you're the lead back. So you're going to get more carries that are drawn up for short yardage plays where the team trusts you to get 2 or 3 yards, and when you're getting drawn up a play that is only for 2 or 3 yards, yeah, that's not going to make your yards per carry look good. But if that play goes for a first down, well, then that's a good carry because that's what that play was drawn up to do. But then that player's yards per carry is going to go down and people are going to use that against them when actually they did their job completely fine. And that's what people aren't considering. And then also blocking is another factor. How do we know you guys aren't looking at the all-22 and going, you know what, that was actually a really good run by Najee Harris, but Trey Turner missed his block where if he made it, then that play would have went for 5 or 6 more yards. And so when people use yards per carry as their sole statistic to prove this guy is a better runner than that guy, you know, you're only scratching the surface and it's not really fair to either player. Goal line carries is another important one too. Najee Harris, he could be getting, and look, I'm not saying this as a matter of a fact because I haven't gone back and looked, also because it's really not all that important to what I'm saying, but Najee Harris, he could be getting a ton of carries at the goal line, which go for 1 or 2 yards because all you do is take the ball on a handoff and take 1 step and you're in the end zone. And that's going to be something that makes your yards per carry go down. And we know for a fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Chiefs have avoided giving him goal line carries in the past. One, because he wasn't that successful at them. And also, they've had other backs that they feel are better on the goal line anyway. And now for the record, we've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually get increased usage lately at the goal line, but you still get my point. This is also important in the debate of Darrell Williams versus Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Carrington Harrison, my guy at 610 Sports Radio, a couple weeks ago, I was listening and he was talking about the running back situation. He goes, well, Darrell Williams, we know what he is. He's a career 3.6 yards per carry running back. So, yeah, he's not better than Clyde. And here's Clyde Edwards-Helaire's, yards per carry. And that really irked me because Darrell Williams, and us Chiefs fans we know Darrell Williams has always been this team's designated short yardage back. So that's going to significantly change his season yards per carry stat. We saw when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went out the first time that Darrell actually ran pretty well. I know that Washington game where he had 2 touchdowns, he ran extremely well and he had a good yards per carry. Now, people will go back to that Washington game and look at Darrell Williams' stats. I have it in front of me right now. They actually have him at a 2.95 yards per attempt against Washington. So I know that some of you would have just ran off and you would have looked up what his stats were for that Washington game and be like, actually, he only ran for 3 yards per carry. And again, this is why using yards per carry solely to say whether or not a running back has run well is stupid, because he was actually averaging 4 yards per carry before the last drive of the game where they ran out the clock, and they gave him 4 straight carries, and I think 2 or 3 of them actually went for a loss of yards, and that ruined his yards per carry for that game, when actually he had a really good game, but on that last drive where they ran out the clock, they drew up a bunch of runs that were up the gut that weren't supposed to go anywhere. They were simply to run out the clock. And a lot of people are going to look at that, and they did look at that, because I remember I was on Twitter after that game, and people said, Darrell Williams actually didn't play that well. His yards per attempt wasn't that good. Here's Clyde's. And See how messed up that is? That's why context is so important. Not just flashing the yards per carry statistic and saying, oh, well, there's your answer. Because it's just not that simple. And once again, I'm not saying that Darrell Williams is better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that he's a better runner. I think he's a better pass catcher for sure, but that's besides the point. That's not an argument I'm having in this video. But to use yards per carry as your sole reason why you lean one way or the other is dumb. A more advanced and similar statistic you could start using when talking about players like that or running backs is yards over expected per carry. So yards over expected per carry versus run blocking is a chart that I want to say ESPN makes. I could be wrong on that. But anyway, they're all over Twitter. I'll try to link one in the description if I can find one for you. But basically what they show is how good of run blocking a running back is getting and what they're doing with that run blocking. And the Chiefs have one of the best run blocking offensive lines in the league. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is right at the middle line, which means he's performing just as expected as he should with the run blocking that the Chiefs are getting. Darrell Williams is actually a lot lower on the yards that he's getting, despite having really good run blocking. But again, that stat, even that one, doesn't show what scenarios these players are getting those carries in, and like it doesn't even factor in what I just talked about, like the Washington game where he got a bunch of carries just to run out the clock at the end, and those carries weren't meant to go anywhere. It doesn't even show stuff like that, which is why context again is so important. But at least yards over expected shows how players are doing comparative to their run blocking. I'm not saying you can never use yards per carry ever again, and like there's a reason why Jamaal Charles, for example, is so highly regarded because of his career yards per carry, especially since Jamaal Charles ran behind some pretty bad O-lines back in the day. And Jamaal Charles, his career yards per carry is just so good, and his yards over expected are so good as well that, like, yeah, that's fair when talking about Jamaal Charles, but these other players, like, they're not Jamaal Charles. And Jamaal Charles also got used a lot more than a lot of these players ever will be used. So Jamaal Charles is actually a little bit more of an anomaly in this yards per carry rant that I'm having. But yeah, yards per carry overall is a very vague portrayal of how a player is doing, and it's unfair to the players that you're comparing when you just throw out yards per carry or compare yards per carry, because it doesn't consider a situation or anything like that. If you do deep research and you're very confident that one running back is better than the other, then that's fine. But I did want to go on a little bit of a rant today, talking about how stupid it is to use yards per carry as your sole argument. And before I actually end up getting into a Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus Darrell Williams debate, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. You guys get the point by now. So hopefully you learned a little bit and this opened your eyes a little bit more. And next time you get into one of these debates, because I'm sure it's going to come up again very soon, you're a little more prepared going into it and you think about it a little bit more. So that's all I got for this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this, and make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. See ya.